Okay, trigonometry in Excel. Trigonometry, if you remember from grade school, was all that stuff that had to do with angles and triangles and the opposite side divided by the adjunct side, stuff like that. Most of the time you use these functions very little, but eventually you'll probably have to use them for something or other. So here they are, or at least here's some of the basic ones in Excel. In Excel, we can do cosine, sine, tangent, secant, and cosecant. And aside from that, we can do a whole lot more trigonometry functions. See, just open here where it says Math and Trig in the Formulas tab, and you get all these functions. See, there's cosine, there's sine, and normally these that have the A before them are arcs. This is arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent. How do you use these functions? Well, these functions are really easy to use. Most of them simply take one value, and that value is the angle that you want to use the function on. So if I type cosine here, which is cos, it says cos requires one argument, which is a number, and that's the angle that you want the cosine for. The only thing you need to be really careful of in Excel is that trigonometry functions require an angle in radians. Excel works by default in radians. If you put in degrees, you're going to get a problem. You're going to get an incorrect result. And in the worst case, you're going to get that result with no error. I mean, the best thing that can happen in Excel is that you put an angle in degrees and you get a negative number, so you know something is wrong. But most of the time, Excel will simply process your angle as if it were radians and will give you an incorrect result. And if you're not watching your result at that time, if you don't do that double check I've talked so much about, you're going to get an error result in the end, and your numbers are going to be wrong. So what we do is we use pi to convert. Pi can be used to convert from radians to degrees or from degrees to radians, like we see down here. The formula is really simple. You simply take degrees, multiply them by pi, divide by 180. If you have radians and you want degrees, you simply multiply by 180, divided by pi. Now, what am I talking about when I say pi? I'm talking about that number 3.14156, I think it is, and it's that mathematical constant that everyone uses every 5 minutes if they work trigonometry. And in Excel, it turns out there's a function for pi. It's a function that returns the full value of pi up to I don't know how many digits, but it's a whole lot of them. If you remember, pi has infinite digits. So you need a function if you really want to be precise. For example, if you're working surveying or geography, things like that that have distances and angles over huge lengths, you're probably going to want to use pi to the maximum available number of digits. So we simply use the pi function in Excel. And the pi function doesn't take any arguments. It's just pi, and you use these two parentheses right there to tell Excel there's no arguments. And there's your value, 3.141592. Okay, let me give you an example of all these functions, cosine, sine, tangent, and whatever. Here I've put an angle, and right here I have each one of those functions pointing to that angle. And these are the results. Now this is a number in degrees. And if you notice, there's something pretty strange here. Start by seeing that cosine and sine have different values. When you have a 45-degree angle, cosine and sine should be the same. Also, if I start bringing this angle down, say 10 degrees, the number cosine and sine becomes negative. Now, the cosine of 0, if you remember, is 1, which is correct, but that means that my number has to get closer to 1 the closer I get to 0. And right here, as you can see, I have a value of 0.28, which is fine. But here, at some point, my number is going to go negative. There, see? My cosine is negative. And that wouldn't seem to make sense. What's the problem? The problem is I'm using degrees and not radians. I need to convert this value to radians for these functions to work correctly. So right here, I'm getting incorrect values. And let me just mark this so that we know that these values are incorrect. What I need to do is convert this to radians, as I said, and to convert to radians, I simply use this formula. I multiply by pi divided by 180, and now I can apply the trigonometry functions on this value and get a correct result. And sure enough, if I type 45 degrees, which is 0.79 radians, I get cosine equals to sine, I get tangent equal to 1. And if I switch this to 0, I get a value of cosine equal to 1 and sine equal to 0, which is the correct value. So that's how you work trigonometry in Excel. You have all these functions and a whole lot more that you can find here under the Formulas tab in the Math and Trigonometry area. And just remember to always input your angle in radians if you want a correct result from these functions. Thanks for watching this video tutorial. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and to visit our website, cubicleoverlords.com, for more instructional videos like this one.